Chapter 9, Organization Culture. In this chapter, we will discuss about what is organizational culture and what are the components of the culture of an organization. Also, we also share with you the factors that shape the culture of the organization, and we will also discuss the models of organizational culture. So let's start to discuss on what is organizational culture. Culture means the sum total of all the beliefs, attitudes, norms, and customs that prevail within an organization. In other words, culture is about the beliefs, attitudes, norms, and customs of the people within the organization. Even we have a lot of definitions of corporate culture. The core of culture is all those norms, beliefs, attitudes, and customs are from the people. So each organization will have its own distinctive cultures, and behavior acceptable in one organizational culture may be inappropriate in another. As we just mentioned, culture is about beliefs, attitudes, norms, and customs from the people or from a person, and each organization has its own staff and per people within it. So every organization has its own or unique cultures that cannot be compared with others. There's no right or wrong. And also, cultures develop over time, so it's not static, it's developed over time and can change instantly as a result of a single major event. For example, the death of a company founder, threatened takeover, or whatever. So here, culture has different meaning. First is about people, about the belief, attitudes, norms, and customs of the people within an organization. And every organization has its own or unique culture and cannot be compared with others. And culture is not static. It can be changed and it is developed over time. Especially there is a special events, as mentioned, such as the company founder change or death or threatened takeover. So after sharing the definition or basic concepts of organizational culture, so let's move on to see what are the components of culture. We have three components of culture. First, a set of norms of behavior. An example is informal dress codes. Norms guide people behavior, suggesting what is or is not appropriate. In an organization, if it welcomes the people with informal dress codes, it doesn't mean that the same norms or behavior will be found in another organization. So here is one component of culture is norms, or a set of norms of behavior. The second component is symbols and symbolic actions. Example is like an office. It has a practice or habits that when the staff have the birthday, then the office will buy a cake for your birthday. So here is an example about symbols or symbolic actions. That is also one component of culture. Another component of culture is a set of shared values and beliefs. It underlies the culture by identifying what is important. An example is a belief in the importance of people as individuals. So when an organization has a set of shared values and beliefs on the people is very important, they should be treated as an individual, is a belief of that, then it is one component of the culture. An organizational culture should contain three components, that is, a set of norms and of behavior, and then it's the symbols and symbolic actions like a birthday cake, and the third one is a set of shared values and beliefs, like the belief of importance of people as individuals. So all three components of culture contribute to organizational culture. Now let's move on to discuss about the factors that shape the culture of the organization. We have 6 factors that shape the culture of the organization. First, size. How large is the organization? Say in terms of turnover, physical size, employee, the number of employees is the first or major factors affecting or shaping the culture of organization. It's about the size of the organization. Next, technology. How technologically advanced is the organization, either in terms of its products or its productive processes. So technology drives another impact on the culture of the organization. If it is more advanced, for example, it needs more innovative ideas from the staff to have more advanced technology, no matter in the product or in the work process, then it drives the culture of an organization maybe more innovative, creative, and encourage the staff to contribute ideas. On the other hand, if a company or an organization it doesn't have too advanced technology, say for example, then it depends on the people or the key persons in an organization to make the decisions, because it doesn't need to have high advanced technology, and no need to have every staff to contribute the ideas or be innovative. From that point of view, the organization culture will be more conservative and not very communicative, and just follow the big boss on decision making. So here is the difference on culture because of the technology. And next, diversity. How diverse is the company, either in terms of product range, geographical spread, or cultural makeup of its stakeholders? If it is more diverse, then it should be more open for the staff to contribute, because different people can contribute from different aspects, no matter it's on product range, on geographical spread, like from the local expertise or cultural. So diversity is also one major factor shaping the culture of the organization. Next is age. How old is the business or the managers of the business? Do its strategic level decision makers have experience to draw upon? So in other words, whether an organization is a aged organization, say maybe 100 years or 80 years, a long period of time of the organization has already built, or it's just a little startup, the difference in age of the people as well leads to different shape of the culture or different culture of the organization. History. What worked in the past? Do decision makers have past successes to draw upon? Are they willing to learn from their mistakes? So here it's about the experience, whether the company have any experiences in the past. If it's very success in the past, then usually it will stick into the norm or practice they did well in the past. Sometimes they don't They don't want to improve it because they think it's almost the best or already the best. But for some startup, they are willing to learn from their mistakes because they just newly started their business. They make a lot of wrong decisions probably, and they don't have any success, or they didn't have any success before. So they will accept new things and be more innovative and adapt to changes. The last factor here is ownership. Is the organization owned by a sole trader? Are there a small number of institutional shareholders, or are there large numbers of small shareholders? If it is just owned by a sole trader, a lot of decision making come from the sole trader, and it's quite linear, the structure, and also the structure is quite linear, and the culture will not be open because all decisions made by the sole trader, all the business are him or her. But if there's a small number of institutional shareholders, or even with a big number of small shareholders, the company needs to listen to more shareholders or more stakeholders. They contribute to the development of the business or the organization. It is also not the same as the culture under the sole trader. So here are 6 major factors shaping the culture of organization. The last topic under organization culture is the models of organizational culture. Organizational culture models are the framework used to define, shape, or influence the culture of an organization. And in this class, I will share with you 3 important models or organizational culture models for you to understand, because they are the most popular one. First, the 3 layers model proposed by Shine. Next, 4 classes of culture, or the Handy's model on 4 classes of culture. And the last one is Hofstede cultural dimensions. So we will discuss 3 different cultural or organizational culture models for you to know more about how the organizational culture developed, what's the theory behind them. So first, let's discuss on the 3 layers model proposed by Shine. Shen argued that the first leaders of the company create its culture, because every company should be started by, say, one person or a group of leaders at the beginning. And the first leaders of a company create its own culture by himself. Shan explained that the link between culture and leadership is very strong, and it is very difficult to change. And future leaders can only be selected if they support this original culture. That means the assumptions behind this theory or model is, at the beginning, the structure is entrepreneurial structure, and the first leader is the power man to create the company as well as its culture, and any future leaders will be only selected by the first leader, because those leaders following the first leader, they support his original culture. And Shine further comment that if leaders are to lead, it is essential that they understand the culture of the organization. So if they are selected as the leader in an organization, They need to understand the culture of the organization, otherwise they are difficult to lead the company or the organization. And to define culture, Shane described it in 3 levels. This is a triangle. On the top of the triangle, we call artifacts. These are the aspects of culture that can be easily seen or found. So everyone can see it. Say, the way people dress. One example is informal dress code, like if you can go into an organization, the office of it, with jeans or shirts or tees, it is easily found and seen by everyone. So this data is easy to collect, right? Here, easy to collect because everyone can see it. But it's not easy to interpret. You can find it, you can see it, but how you say in terms of words to interpret this culture, the people just wear like jeans or informal dress code. It's easy to find, to collect data, but not easy or difficult to interpret. Next, in the middle of the triangle, is espoused values. These are the strategies and goals of an organization. You can still find it, say, company slogans. It can be found by, say, interviewing key members of an organization or consulting documents. So it's not so difficult to find it, but you have to spend time to do your research in order to find like the company slogans or its mission. Its visions, for example, is the espoused values. It talks about the strategies and goals of an organization. At the bottom of the triangle, under this 3 layers model proposed by Shane, is the basic assumptions and values. These are difficult to identify because it's at the bottom of the triangle, it's at the bottom of an organization, as they are unseen. Like you put something at the bottom of your bed or anywhere just in the bottom of it, it is quite difficult to find it at the beginning. You have to deep dive to find it. You have to look for it, maybe. And it exists mainly at an unconscious level. So it's built in the DNA, in the people's DNA. It cannot be found so easy from outside, but it's in their deep heart. And these are the ultimate source of values and actions within an organization. So it's in the deep heart of the people. You can find it maybe from their norms, beliefs, attitudes, everything, but it's not easy to be found at the beginning. One example is the attitude. You cannot find it easy or at the beginning because you have to spend time to understand, to look or to observe the attitude, to look the way of the people, how they communicate. But it keeps a very good message of the organization culture from these basic assumptions and values. So now let's move on to the second model of organizational culture. It's handy 4 classes of culture. Handy popularized 4 cultural types. First, power culture. In his research, Handy wrote a book called God of Management. Handy is a British. He wrote the book, talk about the culture, and 4 classes of culture is from his book. The first one is power culture. there is one major source of power and influence. Next, role culture. People describe their job by its duties, not by its purpose, and this would be seen in bureaucratic organization. Everyone has its role, so the people just describe their jobs by duties not only, so they only follow the rules as well. And the third type of culture proposed by Handy is task culture. It emphasizes on achieving a particular task at hand. And the final classes proposed by Handy here is person culture. It exists to satisfy the requirements of the particular individual involved in the organization. I will go deep into next slide about 4 classes of culture model proposed by Handy. Here is a chart showing whether it's very complex of the work process, or whether the people would like to whether the job or the task is changed frequently or not. First, power culture. Where can we find power culture? Normally, it's within the entrepreneurial organization structure, like sole trader or led by one very strong man. We can find one major source of power in the organization. Under power culture, there are few procedures and rules, because the one strong man says yes, the people just follow it. If that guy said no, we don't do it. So just no procedures, or very few procedures and rules. So it can be found in small owner managed business, because the owner strives to maintain absolute control over subordinates, and there may be just a set few procedures and rules. Next, the role culture type. In this version of culture, we just mentioned people describe their job by its duties, not by its purpose. So it's most effective in stable environments. If there's no significant change in the environment, the rate of change is small, not like the small owner business. Because small owner business, sometimes he need to manage a lot of changes, but for a stable environment with your big organization already exists, just follow the role. The people are happy to do it. And under the role culture, it emphasizes on hierarchy and status. It talks about structure, it talks about authority, it talks about responsibility of individuals. And sometimes, under these role environments, there are many office politics, because the people will argue whether this job should be done by myself or by the other department or by the other staff. And people would like to shift some of unnecessary job or unnecessary task under his table or her table, especially when it's not clear on some new task. So under this role culture, office politics can be found. Task culture. It emphasizes on achieving the particular task at hand, and staff need to be flexible to meet deadlines. Because the task has a deadline, people should be flexible to do it. The rate of change is quite high as compared to, say, role culture. And people therefore describe their positions in terms of the results. They have to achieve the results. And best seen in project teams for task culture. In some Big Four accountancy firm, they have the audit and assurance team. The project team is formed for one particular engagement. So it's task-based or task culture within that particular division, say the audit and advisory department or audit and advisory team. The group or the project team formed is on a particular engagement. After completing the engagement, the team will be dismissed and the team members will be allocated to another, or will be formed with the other with other members on a new engagement team for another engagement. So it can be seen in project teams that exist for a specific task. It's result oriented because their task is to complete the audit engagements. For example, they are just look for the result. Then they should be flexible to meet the audit deadlines or reporting deadlines as well. And last type of culture here is person culture. It exists to satisfy the requirements of the particular individual involved in the organization. The person culture is to be found in a small, highly participatory organization where individuals undertake all the duties themselves. So it's not popular in a big organization. It can be found in a small organization. One example is like a barrister in chambers. It is found in an organization whose purpose is to serve the interests of the individuals within it. Such organizations depend on the talents of the individuals. As I said, like chamber, the barrister in chambers, the purpose is to serve the interests of the barrister joining the chamber. So it should be small and depend on the talents of the individuals, and it's not popular in the big organization under this person culture. The last model we describe here is Hofstede cultural dimensions. Hofstede looked for national differences between over 100,000 of IBM's employees in different parts of the world in an attempt to find aspects of culture that might influence business behavior. So here is a research done by Hofstede. And the model was built after the research, and it found there are 4 dimensions. And after the 4 dimensions model developed, the work of research continued, and Hofstede added 2 more elements or dimensions later. So basically, there are 4 cultural dimensions mentioned by Hofstede cultural dimension model. First, PDI is about the power. The power distance index, or what we call PDI. You can see whether it's low or high. And next is individualistic or collectivistic, whether it is respect to individuals or it would like to be more collective. Next is masculine, whether it respects the female in the office or what's the culture of gender in the office. And last is uncertainty avoidance index, whether it is highly uncertainty or a low uncertainty culture. We will go through these 4 dimensions one by one in next slide. First, the power distance index. It is about the extent to which the less powerful members of organizations and institutions accept and expect that power is distributed unequally. Example, in South American societies, the differences in power can be tolerated more than in North European cultures. Is one example. And for high power distance index cultures, the high PD cultures, it expects to answer to powerful managers and do not expect to have any democratic input into decisions that are made. In other words, for high power distance index, an extreme case, there's one strongman say, and it cannot accept any other subordinates to view or to give their view or to say no on the decisions. For low PD cultures, it expects to be involved with the decision-making process and wants less direct supervision by managers. In other words, no matter of your grades or your seniority in an organization, you are welcome to be involved in the decision-making process and with less direct supervision by the managers in these low PD cultures. Individualism versus collectivism, or the IDV, it looks at the extent to which people are integrated into groups. Some cultures are more cohesive than others. Example, like Anglo-Saxon cultures are generally more individualistic than the collectivist cultures of South America. And for high, the index is high, IDV index, it is high. Staff expect to be assessed on their own achievements and performance because it encourages individualism. So the staff expects to be assessed on their own individual contribution. On the other hand, if the index is low, it would mean that staff expect to be assessed on a group basis. It's a group contribution, not my individual contribution, say, and they prefer the organization to set group goals. So it's a balance whether it respects to individual performance or group performance. If the index, this IDV index is low, that means the people within the organization, they prefer to stay in a group and contribute to the group and assess as a group basis. Next, UAI index, or uncertainty avoidance index. It deals with a society's tolerance for uncertainty and ambiguity. High UA index, or UAI, the people within the organization, they don't like to act outside their normal job descriptions or roles. They prefer to be directed by management and like formal rules and guidelines because they don't like uncertainty. They avoid it. If UAI is high, this index is high, they try to avoid any uncertainty. So they prefer to be direct the senior management. They don't want to make decisions. They just want to follow rules and guidelines. On the other hand, if the index is low, the UAI index is low, the people will be prepared to take more risk and go beyond their comfort zones. They tend to dislike bureaucratic structure as they don't like to do it because they like to have more freedom. They like uncertainty. They don't want to avoid it. They would like to take challenges. They would like to perform, for example. So they would like to jump out from the comfort zone. They don't like to follow the strict rules. The last cultural dimension we discuss here is the MAS index, the masculinity versus femininity index. And masculine culture is one where the distinction between the roles and values of the genders is large. And the males focus on work, power, and success, whereas in feminine cultures, the differences between the gender roles is much smaller. Here is just a generalization of this MAS index. When we look at the reality, how we applied, whether it is the high MAS index or not, in a high MAS index, that means the masculine cultures is motivated. But how do we motivate this culture? For the male, say they would like to have the job titles, they would like to have the increased status and pay rises. That are the cultural values of high MAS index. That means you motivate the staff, mainly for the male staff, for example, with better job titles, increased status, and pay rises. But on the other hand, if the index is low, that means the MAS index is low, the staff can be motivated on the other way. Like they need more work-life balances, they need quality of life, and relationships at work. So it's not just about the genders. It builds on the gender, the index, but on the core culture behind this MAS index is whether it is high MAS index. That means the staff within the organization, they are looking for job titles, higher status, and better pay. On the other hand, if the index is low, the staff work in the organization, they are looking for different things like work-life balance, quality of life, and relationships at work. After the initial research, Hofstede found the 4 cultural dimensions as we just discussed. And the research was still working. He's still working on the research, and 2 more dimensions found after the 4 dimensions are published in the public. It's called the LTO index, long-term orientation versus short-term orientation, and IND index, the indulgence versus restraint index. So here is these two indexes are latest developed. For long-term orientation versus short-term orientation, the societies with a long-term orientation focus on future rewards. So it is more long-term focus or oriented, with a particular focus on saving, persistence, and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Here is the key on long-term orientation. On the other hand, short-term oriented cultures focus on past and present concerns, such as respect for tradition, social obligations, and saving face. So here, for long-term orientation and short-term orientation, the differences is how you look, or how the people are looking forward. Under long-term orientation, it's about whether we are able to adapt to changing environments or circumstances. So we are safe. Okay, we need to save, for example, to prevent any significant changes in future. But for short-term oriented cultures, it's looking at the back, like the past and present concerns. So they have no long-term vision on this culture. So whether the LTO index is high, that means it looks for a long-term or future rewards. On the other hand, if it is low, the LTO index is low, they just look at the past or present concerns. The last cultural dimensions developed by Hofstede is indulgence versus restraint, or the IND index. Indulgence societies allowed relatively free gratification of basic and natural human drives related to enjoying life and having fun. So here is talking about fun and enjoying life. And more restrained societies suppress gratification of needs and regulate it by means of strict social norms. So if the organization have a strict or more strict restrained environment, the people, they're just looking for, they are bounded by many rules, say, or norms within the organization. But on the other hand, if the IND index is relatively high, is much more indulgent, the culture in that organization is more fun oriented or enjoying or more life enjoying oriented. So here is the difference between indulgence and restraint culture. So we finished the discussion of 3 models of organizational culture. We discussed the Shine model and Handis model and also the Hofstede model. So now we go through questions for you to have a better understanding of the models or other issues that we discussed in this class. First, which of the following would not be classified by Shane as an artifact? The first option, dress codes in the organization, whether it's true or not. Second, design of the organization's premises. Third, stated aim of the organization to improve customer service. And D, office facilities provided by the organization. And remember, for this triangle, the shine triangle, is that the top of the triangle is artifacts. So artifacts mean that it's easily be found or seen by the people. It's just the aspect of cultures that can be easily seen. So which one are easily seen is classified under artifact, and which one is not, then it's the answer for this question. Next question. Anna has recently moved to country A to head up a newly created research team. She quickly discovers that her staff seems unwilling to make major decisions for themselves and expects her to monitor their work closely. Which of the following features of Hofstede cultural dimensions are Anna's staff demonstrating? So the keyword here is the staff are unwilling to make their own decisions and expects the supervisor to monitor their work closely. So there are 4 options. A, whether the team demonstrate a high individualism cultural dimension, or B, low power distance index, is it true? Or C, is high uncertainty avoidance, or D, is femininity, that is the opposite of masculinity. So remember these cultural dimensions. We have 6 cultural dimensions and we mentioned 4 of them here. Power index, low power index, individualism is high individualism, or high uncertainty avoidance, or femininity here. So which answer is the correct one to describe the situations in Anna's latest team?